right, we'll officially call the meeting to order. This is the work session for June 26, 2019. Let the minutes reflect that all the board members are present. We have a number of staff, and we've got two very distinguished gentlemen in the audience. Before us, we have the June 12, 2019 minutes, and would entertain a motion of approval for those minutes.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on those minutes, changes, updates, or otherwise? Okay, seeing none, those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, monthly reports are all current. We'll move on to public hearings, which we have none tonight. We have no guests this evening, so we're going to jump right into action items. And the first item is the Recreation Master Plan, next steps, and we've got the very distinguished and always popular Mr. Chris Bilo.
How about that? All right, well, so I emailed everybody a copy of the update last week, just to give you a chance to take a look at it before I go over the updates with you this evening. And everything that was done and updated through this for the draft was done as a response from the feedback that was received from the public information meeting or hearing back on May 15th. So received a number of different comments, suggestions, thoughts, etc. from that meeting. Since then, we didn't receive any other, I didn't receive any other, and no other information came in. So basically the information that was received on the 15th is what sort of led to the changes that are in here.
And we elected to hold the hearing open for a period of time to give
June
folks
5th.
Yep, to give folks that opportunity to get anything in that they wanted to.
Yep. So just a couple of things before I get into the update or some of the changes. Just to reiterate some of the points or the purposes from that update. You know, the idea of going into this was just to kind of give an overview of currently from the town standpoint, our impact for the overall quality of our current recreation program services as well as our parks programs and services. Update also showed the current state of our department within the town of Penfield. Obviously within this update we had a number of recommendations, a number of which we had identified as what I'll say department level recommendations, whether that be through the rec department or through the parks department or DPW. And I'll go over those, and then there's also some that I'll say on a higher level from a town standpoint, some recommendations, and those tended to focus towards the facility piece. So really there was a number of different sort of directions that we were anticipating the update to sort of follow over the next 5 years. One of the questions that came up was the prioritizing or sort of the recommendation order, or what direction we were going to go. And again, looking at this update, really the facility piece is really the main recommendation from a town standpoint of addressing the current recreation center, projecting that out over the next, say, 5 to 10 years. So from a town standpoint, addressing and sort of taking that role on as to future facility, whether it's at that location, a different location, needs, amenities, costs, funding, all those kind of directions would be handled on a separate note. From a department standpoint, both, like I said, the parks and the recreation department have their own recommendations that they'll be focusing on. Obviously from a recreation standpoint, that program section or the program dimension as it's highlighted in this update, really with an emphasis on adult programming and family programming over the next 5 years, will really be what the department is tasked with. On the flip side, from the park standpoint, the DPW and the park staff, the expectation is that they'll go through those list of recommendations and start to develop from a department standpoint and building in from a budget standpoint their process to handle some of those recommendations. So that's sort of how we're going to address it moving forward over the next 5 years. Changes that were done within the update since that 15th meeting were, I'll go through them real quick, was we changed the header under the parks dimension. We changed the header of that section to parks, properties, and amenities for recreational use. So what we did is we added properties in there because of the number of comments that we received regarding getting Shadow Pines enlisted in or included in this update. So we changed the header of that. We changed the statement under the parks section on page 14 to be a little bit more specific in regards to the terminology behind Shadow Pines, talking about the number of acreage, talking about, and then getting in a little bit more detail about the Shadow Pines Land Use Advisory Committee, its recommendations for the property, along with that report that was submitted to the town board back in April, with consideration for hopefully in the fall of 2019 adoption. So that verbiage was, I'll say, expanded a little bit on page 14. Page 22, which is where our list of parks, features, and properties was listed out by site. We added Shadow Pines. We also added the 4 Mile Creek Nature Preserve into that. And then on page 23, which is that grid or that breakout of everything, every one of those locations, we added both Shadow Pines and 4 Mile Creek Nature Preserve to those. And under both of those sections, we listed Shadow Pines as Shadow Pines property. So from an update standpoint, those were the main changes. And again, based on feedback that we had from the 15th, which obviously was, everybody was in attendance for, that was predominantly, the number of comments were really geared around Shadow Pines, so we tried to make sure we captured as much of that as we could in here, but yet still didn't lose sight of the fact that this is, from a comprehensive plan, is all about recreation and parks, not just specific to one location. So that's it. Those were the changes. Questions? Thoughts?
So next steps. Would be to adopt this. So if the board is comfortable with the changes that Chris had highlighted based on input feedback that we got at the public hearing, then I would suggest that for our July 17th meeting, we present the town board with a resolution to adopt this as our master plan update final product, and put that in place. So if folks are comfortable with that, certainly would entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we put the Parks and Rec Master Plan update on the agenda for approval at our next meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any additional questions for Mr. Bilo or other members of our team?
No.
All right, then we'll move forward on the 17th. Chris, if you wouldn't mind putting that together,
No
and
problem.
getting that into the town clerk. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, great job, Chris, not only to yourself, but your team, and then the committee that you had. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right,
Thanks.
very good. And we look forward to another very exciting Saturday ahead.
Me too. Good weather and all.
Good weather and all.
See you guys Saturday.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Chris. All right, the next action item is development of apartment building 1384 Empire Boulevard. We had conversations about this here in the past. I know that the board has received a lot of different materials. I think the most recent material was an SRF Associates. They did some work as it related to the proposed development, impact on traffic and things like that. And I know that the board has copies of plans, not only a rough outline for site plan, but kind of an overview of the project. So with that, Mr. Costello, anything more you would like to tee up for the board?
No,
before we discuss next steps?
We also did receive the Monroe County 239 review comments, and sharing those with you fairly quickly as well. In talking to Tony earlier, we talked about the possibility of setting a public hearing. As you just noted with Chris, the next town board legislative session will be on the 17th. which was the night we would, if you want to move forward, would be the night we would set, resolution setting a public hearing, which would be for August 7th. That would be the soonest we could do it to meet all of our advertising deadlines. There's a 5th week in July this year that kind of messes everything up.
That's okay.
All right. So, questions, comments by the board? One of the things that I think is important to raise, back when we spoke about this back in September of 26, 2018, the number of units we started at, there was 56. That went to 70, and now I think we're at 95, if I recall, Mr. Costello?
Yes.
95? So one of the questions for the board is that what's your appetite for number of units? And I will say that I think that 95 is on the heavy end.
Yeah.
I will just share that.
On average, how many are in the other buildings?
Yeah.
It depends on the building. I think that the normal buildings, without that 1/10 building, I think you had like, was it
I think
39?
I think it ranges. I think the last building built, which was
24.
supposedly going to be the, I looked that up, it was 24. That was going to be the townhomes for sale, if you were condominiums for sale. And I think the other units averaged between 36 and 39.
And I would
So
say 95
for a total
is
for a
a little
total
much.
of three
So it's
for a
three
total of
times more.
336 for that
That's-
9-building complex. So I just throw that out there
Right.
because obviously, while we have the applicant here, we want to provide a little bit of guidance or thoughts so that as they're pulling their plan together. So, here is one of the latest items that we have, if anybody wants to refresh their memories on.
They did make the application for 95 units.
Okay.
And I guess what we normally do is when they make an application for that for any number, we advertise that, and then you can work through the process.
I was actually just going to mention that I
Yeah.
think certainly it's up to the applicant, to their choice as to how they want to present and to
Right.
what extent, but you do so at your own risk.
Right.
That you're doing that at the public hearing stage, and that, you want to make sure that if that is in fact the desired application, that then we're able to flush it out with the public as much as we can. So I don't like to tie applicants' hands behind their back if they have a preferred application.
I agree.
Right.
Okay. Other thoughts, other comments?
We did meet with the state DOT and did talk briefly about this back in April in anticipation of it coming in. I don't think they're anticipating any improvements because their middle turn lane kind of comes down to and serves where the existing site was that serviced the marina activity and also the Murphy's Law site. So it kind of is in place right now. There's no improvement proposed for the right-of-way, if I'm not mistaken. I do have to talk to the the DEC though, and I'm going to do that tomorrow morning, just to make sure they're comfortable with no encroachments into the adjacent areas and that type of thing.
Got it. All right. Other comments, board or Mr. Costello?
That's it.
Okay, so we confirm, so everybody's got, we confirm the date resolution you're suggesting. Calling for a public hearing will be in on July 17th.
Yes.
And public hearing date would be scheduled for August 7th. Okay, so that's direction to move forward with that. Board entertain a motion to move forward with that.
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, matter carries. Thank you very much. And we do have one additional item that was not on the agenda but came to my attention. I know that I like to minimize having any extra matters, especially if they haven't been advertised. But the proposed veterinarian hospital on Empire Boulevard, when they were, so there, we approved, they complied with all of the requirements of, they issued, they supplied all the correct easements, letter of credit, everything. And then they started, and they pulled their permit to start to do their work. They identified in an area that had ash fill from the old Rochester, ash dump. And so to their credit, they actually stopped work. They hired an environmental engineer to come in and take a look at that. Once they got everything together, they came back to speak with staff and engineer and what have you. So Mr. Costello's got a kind of a brief update that he would like to share with the board as information items.
Thank you,
Jim?
Tony. So, as Tony mentioned, they did run into a bit of a problem. They've been working with us since they did that. There's been no work on the site since they stopped. They would very much like to get back to work. They are asking that they be allowed to shift the building 40 feet to the northeast a little bit to get it out of the fill area. They've already identified the fact that they've got the soil all the way down to where they need to be for the footers in the area that they're showing you on the plan. There are 3 components. The first one is some good things come out of this. One thing is because they're moving further back up the hill, they can flatten out the grade on their driveway coming in a little bit, which is better than it was during the approval process, even though it was approved by both the town and the fire district. The second thing is they're going to have to reroute drainage swale around the north side of the building. You can see it's dotted there to get positive drainage from the front to the back. And behind the building there is proposed a stormwater management facility or a rain garden. I think that has to be shifted a little bit further away from the building personally. They're more than willing to do that. They've had a couple of storms over the last couple of weeks, and they say that the ground recharge is phenomenal and they're not getting any type of standing water on the site. So the PRC's reviewed it. PRC's is supportive of the relocation, subject to them preparing a new site plan similar to what was done for the approval process as an amended map, which we would have the supervisor and the town engineer sign. Excuse me, and then let them move forward. We really don't have any problem with them continuing work on the building aspect of it. It's just a matter of now putting in a foundation. There's no basement even, it's just pouring a slab. So we're not opposed to them continuing work. They've got their permit, but we do want to have those plans revised over the next couple of weeks, and they've agreed to do that.
So it sounds like they've, and even here, the notations here, they're justifying the shift, the change in the plan, but it's not substantive enough that it's changing their project.
That's right, but we felt comfortable to bring it back to you just as a courtesy since it is changed. It will help the parking a little bit, that's the second component. It provides better parking than what they had now because they've got more of it. It's more linear than being stacked on top of itself.
And it was unforeseen because they didn't know.
Right. And
Yeah,
then,
part of the old Rochester City ash dumps. And again, to their credit, I had this conversation with Mark this afternoon. To their credit, they stopped, did some of their own analysis. Once they gathered additional information, they came back into the board, back into engineering and talked about what they could do to help mitigate and minimize the problem. And so they have been very upfront and very forthright with all the information in and around the site.
we may have to look at maybe modifying some easements for the stormwater management area because it will not be in that easement area anymore. That easement has been recorded already, so we may have to abandon that one.
I was going to abandon that one and put a new one in.
But other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Okay. So if the board is comfortable with that, then I'd like to memorialize the change. Staff will follow up with a letter to say that we reviewed it at this meeting. We're supportive of them moving, subject to a new or amended site plan, taking care of any easements, and getting that record corrected.
So we don't need any formal action on this?
No, I mean, other than just
directing staff?
yeah, I would just say that we entertain a motion to approve the direct staff to close this back with a letter supporting the amended site plan.
I'll make a motion.
Subject to.
That we accept the proposed adjustments as set forth in the plan that we reviewed tonight and direct staff to respond accordingly to the applicant.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? All right, thank you, board, thank you for that. You know, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have to wait, you know, until the second meeting in July, you know, for this, so thank you in advance for that. All right, seeing no further items to come before the board, the June 26, 2019 work session stands adjourned at 7:21 p.m. Thank you for everyone who participated. Thank you to Penfield TV.